It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce and Michael. I know a ghost story or two. Let's do this.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we share personal paranormal histories with amazing guests and tell stories.
Yep. Stories.
Is this a British show all of a sudden? Tell tales of high strangeness. I'm your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your other host,
Bryce Johnson.
And your trusty producer,
Bray.
And today we have a really great guest.
Yes,
we have an expert back in the studio. I like our expert episodes because we feel more like a legit paranormal podcast.
Yeah.
Today's guest is an investigative journalist specializing in the topic of UFOs. He's the author of Somewhere in the Skies, A Human Approach to Alien Phenomenon. He is also a contributing author to the anthology UFOs Reframing the Debate. He's the creator and host of the Somewhere in the Skies podcast, of which I'm a fan.
Yes, me too.
A regular on Travel Channel's Mysteries of the Museum, and is the co-investigator and host of Roswell Mysteries Decoded, which I just watched last night. It's currently airing on CW Seed. Please welcome Ryan Sprague.
Yay!
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, dude, we're
as well.
so excited to have you. Been trying to make this happen for a little while. So I just went down a whole list of your bio
What a resume.
and accomplishments. Yes. Let's talk about the, real quick to kick off the Roswell special that's on CWC. How did that come about?
So I was approached just a few months ago, actually, by CW and some producers, and they have their big Roswell, New Mexico, fictional sci-fi show coming out.
Right.
And
The old reboot.
the reimagining, they're calling this one. Yeah. I saw the first episode. I absolutely loved it.
Oh, cool.
As a UFO investigator, we're very critical when it comes to like entertainment,
Yeah, of
UFO
course.
history mixing. But I was grinning from ear to ear when I saw it. They did a great job. But they wanted to inform the public of what actually happened at Roswell before their show sort of goes out on their own.
That's the vibe I got from it, and I thought you guys did such a good job. We were talking off mic before the show.
Yeah,
you,
I second
Bryce,
that.
And, like, you guys managed to cover like all the major beats, all the major players, and all the little conspiracies I thought you guys laid out real quick, and managed to go out to the crash site in Corona.
Yeah.
That's
it was
insane.
Insane. I mean, 100 miles from anything. There's this memorial out there that says, this is where something crashed in 1947. And a lot of people think that's a crash site. They go there, drive there, see it, cool, they leave.
Yeah.
It's actually like 100 miles away from that. We were just endless desert.
And listeners know I've been to Roswell, and there is
Bragger.
nothing out. I mean,
Nothing.
It's it is so isolated. It's crazy. I had no
life,
idea.
No
Yeah.
garbage, nothing out there. So
That's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of Roswell docs, and hats off to you guys. Like you guys, like Mike said, covered some amazing ground, and you did it in a new, fresh way too. Like, for instance, you guys were able to analyze some anomalous material from the supposed crash site. And you guys were able to take a close look at the Ramsey letter, which is, for those who aren't familiar, the famed photograph of Jesse Marcel holding the weather balloon that he was made to hold, and right beside him is General Ramsey holding this letter that he probably didn't think was going to be captured on photograph. But with today's computer technology, you guys were able to take a closer look at that letter and find some interesting thing. Not to give too much away, but
yeah, you give a UFO person like a piece of evidence like
Yeah.
that, and we are going to break it down as
Yeah.
much as humanly possible. And
Yeah.
that's the good thing about these television shows is there's going to be UFO researchers out there who see this and can then bring us more information that they've been working on for 10, 20, 30 years that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
I've already had people reaching out to me after seeing the special and be like, oh, you interviewed this guy, he's connected to this person, you should go talk to them. Or
Did you happen to meet Dennis Balthasar when you were out there?
no,
Do you
I
know
did
him?
not. Yeah,
Do you
the
know of
funeral
him?
home guy, maybe?
No, he's a guy who does guided tours of Roswell.
Oh, yes,
And
yes. I'm confused.
He's been on some other shows, but my buddy and I, when we went to Roswell, we did the tour with him, and he was incredible. He took you to all the locations, and he knew all. He would speak to. He was like originally from San Antonio, I believe. and then moved and retired in Roswell. And he's kind of become one of the keepers of the lore there, and really knows his stuff, really knows his facts. A lot of the stuff that you guys presented in the special, I had heard from him. So he's just if you ever get the chance to meet and talk with him, I think you'll really, really dig his perspective. And he tends to cut through the bullshit as well, which I really liked. You know,
a lot of bullshit when it comes to Roswell.
Yeah, and we haven't actually done the Roswell story yet on this show because it is such a monumental case, and there's so much there that we really want to be able to
We feel like it's a two-parter.
Yeah, well, we're at least because we're the way our podcast is as opposed to yours. I feel like we talk the talk, but you really walk the walk.
That's right.
And our stuff is sort of I envision Bigfoot Collectors Club to kind of be a primer for, hey, if you're interested in these stories, you can kind of get the gist of it here. We're the Cliff's Notes version of a lot of this stuff, and then you can kind of go down the rabbit hole from there. Now, obviously, a lot of themes recur on this show, and we'll bring back old stories. And actually, I want to do some of that with you today. It's rare that we have a bona fide ufologist on the show. So I think in the second half of the show,
I have so much to ask.
We're going to go through some of our old stories of high strangeness and get your take on them, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So I think at some point we are going to do Roswell, but it's going to be a little bit of a game changer for us because we want to do it some justice, and might be our first non-guest special guest multi-part.
Get out of here. Me and Mike need to talk.
Yeah. Well, because what's fascinating to me about it, and I thought that your special touched upon is, and Dennis Balthazar, when we were going around Roswell, and he was kind of he also gives you such a great history of the city itself, which is great, the town itself. But to me, what's set aside the fact that there's a crash flying saucer involved, which is obviously the whole point. But it also, to me, it's a fascinating story of watching the Army in real time come up with how to do a cover-up because they'd never done one of this magnitude before.
Right.
And yes, the idea of that what's fascinating to me is it just shows you how back in 1947, they didn't necessarily have a concept of permanence. That one day you could run a story saying that there's a crash flying saucer that the Air Force has recovered, and the next day they can say, nope, it was a weather balloon, and put a picture up, and they probably thought that's that.
Yeah.
And for decades, the Roswell story was covered up and ignored. But you brought up a great point. They never thought that there would be nerds analyzing this photo decades later.
Yeah.
And now, of course, the Air Force, the Army the military is going to be much savvier at their cover-ups, but you're watching them figure out, oh shit, we shouldn't have said anything, and now we have to kind of backpedal. And there was so much trust in the government at the time because of World War II and coming off of winning World War II that, if Uncle Sam said, do this, you did it. If they said, don't report this, you don't. You keep your mouth shut. Obviously, there's in that story too. There's some allusions of threatening talk, which I think is controversial for some people. But people kept their mouth shut. But it's such a fascinating snapshot in time for me and the way things worked. And you see the beginning of that machine starting to work
immediately. That was the beginning, I think, of. Maybe not military cover-up in general, but definitely when it comes to this topic.
Because the military's always had their secrets,
Yeah. But, the minute that thing crashed and the military got on site, realized it definitely was not theirs, whatever it was, the cover-up started almost immediately. You mentioned with the headline in the paper, Roswell finds flying saucer on ranch, changed the next day to, nope, just a weather balloon. Right there, like you said.
Yeah.
People aren't going to ignore that. And that headline about the flying saucer was given to the Roswell Daily Record, which we went to in the special.
From the Army PR
From
guy.
the Army.
Yeah.
They wanted America to be the first to be in possession of a possible alien spacecraft.
Yeah.
And that guy, I can't remember his name, he lived down the street from Jesse Marcel. Mm-hmm. And the two of them, after this whole thing blew over, they would ride to work together to the Air Force base and not talk about what had happened. I think it was Ramsey who came in, or the admiral above him, that said, you call the Gazette, or what's the name of it?
The Roswell Daily Record.
Roswell
today,
Daily
yep.
Record. You call them and you get them to pull that story.
Wow.
And the guy at this tiny little newspaper office, he went, sorry, it just went to print. And they couldn't stop it. So they had to wait till the next day to walk the story back.
That's
Yeah,
fascinating.
and that's where the photos of Marcel and the weather balloon came from. Completely staged. I think we have definitively proved
the
that.
photographer has come out and said that it was staged. Jesse Marcel has come out and said that it was staged.
And he was ambushed, too, because they had the real wreckage and some of that metal that he had brought home in that office. He left the office, and when he came back to take that photo, it had been swapped out. With,
you know,
it was already being shipped somewhere else. I can guarantee you.
What I love about this case, almost more so than any others, is you can take a complete pragmatist or a skeptic, and you can kind of have them delve into it, and you can really sort of turn them 180, as you did so well in your special Roswell Mystery Decoded, that you could see for free. And you should go check it out, because your investigative partner, Jen, she kind of comes in as a skeptic, but she's able to look at that evidence and by the end of it be relatively convinced that something there took place, something was covered up by the government. And, I just recently read Ben Mesrick's book, The 37th Parallel. And,
you've had him on your podcast.
Yeah, I had him on.
He's a fascinating guy. I heard that episode, which
Ryan
is great.
has a legitimate podcast.
I know. I'm kind of geeking out. But
stop it.
He was the same way. He kind of came into he just thought it was a fascinating story about this guy, Chuck Zukowski, who was a UFO investigator. He had no prior knowledge of UFOs, pretty much didn't think they existed, or, sort of felt what everybody else feels about it. There's probably nothing there. To have himself, after doing his book, be completely turned around 180, going, not saying that, hey, I know for a fact there was aliens from another planet that crashed off, but he said there is definitely something that happened at Roswell, and a government conspiracy took place there. And it's so that's what's great about that case. That's what's tangible, is that so often people be like, UFOs, they may be real, they may be not. But like, no, there's evidence there to look at. There's so much of it, in fact, that we know that it's an actual thing in existence. We don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, we shout it from the rooftops as ufologists. There is evidence out there, and I think that really came to light this past year when we learned the Pentagon was secretly investigating UFOs for like 10 years or so.
Yeah.
We didn't even know that. Like, no one in our niche community was looking into that. We always presumed it. But...
So what's your take on that? Because the thing that I kind of took away from that whole thing, that was December 17th of last year, New York Times.
It was like right around when we started this podcast.
Yeah, it was like
it's
a month
amazing.
after we started.
Synchronicity.
The thing that I found really fascinating about that, and I want to hear your take, Ryan. If you grow up reading this stuff, which I know you did, and we obviously were consuming UFO stuff growing up, the whole thing is like, oh, the government knows, and they're keeping. It's the whole. There's the narrative of. There's the Bob Lazar narrative, which is we've got the machines, they're just keeping it a secret. But what was fascinating about that article from the New York Times is it almost read to me as if, yes, the Air Force, the military know about these things, but they don't know what they are, which contradicts the conspiracy stuff to a degree. And I just want to know, do you think that that's the case? Do you think it's really they are just as stupefied as well? Or is it an instance where, okay, the people at that level don't know, but there's people who have access to more classified information that may know? Right. How do we live in a universe where the Roswell crash happened and they may have recovered bodies, and then in the past 10 years the Pentagon is like scraping together funding to kind of figure out what these flying Tic Tacs are and may not know? Like, how do those two worlds coexist in your mind?
It's hard. I mean, you look at the narrative of someone like Bob Lazar, who's made the claims that he has, and we've
had that debate on this show.
Oh, I'm sure you have. Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
I struggle with that whole scenario every day.
Yeah.
The most recent documentary made was very convincing. I'm not going to lie. I learned a lot about Bob Lazar's person, and I did leave thinking something definitely happened. He saw what he says he saw. What that actually was, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
It could have been part of some big disinformation campaign or weird, stuff like that. But mind control. But when it comes to this whole Pentagon program, I'm kind of under the same assumption as the New York Times kind of concluded that the government doesn't know shit about UFOs. And I'm
Which
okay
to me
with
makes
that.
so much more sense and is so much more compelling.
Yeah, it's dark, it's sexy to think like X-Files is real and
Right.
they know they're working with the aliens, there's this huge grand conspiracy, but from the research I've done, the military people I've spoken to, government officials, a lot of them said, I just did what I was told and I covered it up or I did this. They don't know what they're actually dealing with,
Right.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I like to tell people is they may not know what it is or be in control of the phenomenon itself, but they can control the narrative that gets out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to fight against.
Right.
Is don't let them tell you what happened. Look into it yourself because you're going to find stuff that they think you're not going to find, just like when it comes to Roswell.
Well,
Right.
and as if you'll recall in that article, they stopped funding the program ATIP because of lack of evidence and lack of interest in Congress. And that just goes to show you that while they may be sort of gathering these data files, they can't put together any sort of some conclusion as to what or who or why this thing is. So it's just kind of left as like, hey guys, you have some interesting videos. We see that you're, doing some great field work, but we can't keep funding this, So obviously, I tend to agree with what you guys are saying. As far as my own personal research into what this thing or these things are, it seems to lead down a path that it's somewhat physical in nature, but at the same time it's almost somewhat psychical in nature, part of the psyche or part of consciousness. And then you start to find leads where it's connected to magical ceremonies or stuff like that, like old Aleister Crowley stuff, and you're going, you cannot put this phenomena in a box, and even if you are part of some $22 million, which is paltry in comparison to what they spend on one B-2 bomber is about that same, probably half that cost. You know what I mean? So it's not like they're throwing a shit ton of money at this thing. They're interested because it keeps popping up. They're interested because materials are showing up. And
they're interested too because, like they mentioned, Harry Reid was like one of the ways he got that funded was there were congressmen and senators who remember seeing stuff when
they
they
were pilots.
fighting
Yeah.
in wars,
Yeah,
and they're like,
that's right.
I used to see that shit when I was flying in Korea, or I saw that in Vietnam, or I saw that in, that stuff's fascinating.
Well,
I
and the
agree.
word threat, I think, is a big part of
Yeah.
it too. You put threat in your proposal to get funding for the government,
Yep.
they're going to look a lot closer at it and be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
all right,
that's
we'll
a
give
really
you,
good point.
some chump change to look into that.
Yeah.
I think Harry Reid was back in the news recently trying to drum up some more funding for programs of
This
these nature.
happens every time there's a government-funded UFO project, Project Blue Book, ATIP.
Yeah.
Whenever these things dissolve, the people in charge of them start their own UFO research organizations. It happened with J. Ellen Hynek,
Yeah.
who headed Blue Book. It happened with Luis Elizondo with ATIP. And now maybe Harry Reid's going to start his own little
That would be
MUFON
cool.
thing. I'll
Yeah.
join. Let's do it.
Let me ask you, Ryan, since we have you here, and I'm dying to. I mean, out of your years of research and stuff, where do you think this phenomena lies? I mean, what are your
Just jump straight to the conclusion.
I want to know before the show ends.
Skip to the end.
You're probably
Skip to the
wondering
end.
how I got here.
What are your instincts tell you this thing is?
I'm still trying to figure it out. I've come across so much physical evidence, nuts and bolts craft being seen, all the way up to things you mentioned, very psychic, almost like consciousness aspects to all this as well. People having parapsychological events where they said they were told to look out their window and then they see something, or a craft that they saw cured an ailment that they. It's insane. Like there's so much to this entire
What's
UFO
up
phenomenon.
with the owls? Why do they always see
Yeah,
owls
totally.
before an alien abduction?
Crop circles,
Yep.
owls,
so much to it.
so much. And then, that's what I loved about, and you mentioned the Bob Lazar, which was done by a filmmaker who we've had on the show and we admired, Jeremy Corbell. He did his other documentary on Skinwalker Ranch. And what I love about that is it sort of puts all the phenomena together in a bowl of soup and mixes it around and says, hey, these aren't compartmentalized stories of high strangeness. You have UFOs mixed in with
Poltergeist activity.
Mixed in with native
Bigfoot.
ceremonial shamans, mixed in with bipedal creatures, portals. And so you throw all this, into a smorgasbord bag and go, and it's telling us, hey, this is all connected somehow. And I don't know, what do you think about that?
The more I look into it, the more I'm convinced there are some sort of connections between all of this, the supernatural, paranormal, high strangeness, UFOs. I interviewed many individuals who had high strangeness activity after a UFO event or poltergeist. I have a crazy story about that in the book, but I mean, there has to be some sort of connection, whether or not it's, they're working together. Bigfoot's coming off a UFO. That I can't tell you.
Yeah.
But the more I look into it, the more I'm convinced that's happening. It's hard because we want to think it's just UFOs over here, just paranormal activity over here. And it's frustrating because just when you think you have an answer to this UFO phenomenon, like something else swoops in and is like, you're not done. Like, keep going down this avenue. Owls. That's a big one, big one. So many people have had owl sightings connected to a UFO case. I spoke to a gentleman who's in the book as well who just collects these stories about people and owls. Thousands and thousands of
And
stories.
the owl stuff is also connected to fairy folklore stuff. Like up to the most, like a very modern, recently modern example, Labyrinth is like Jareth is preceded, David Bowie's character, before the baby's abducted by the goblins. His visit is preceded by a white owl. The whole thing opens with the white owl. They're like the threshold gatekeeper to this other world.
Well, and then we were talking about, Planet Weird's new documentary series called Hellier, and what seems to be a reoccurrence or a reemergence of the Hopkinsville Goblin, which is also associated with UFOs. I forget the name of the original family, but it was Billy
Suttons.
Yeah, the Suttons. It was Billy Ray who had first saw a disc, a saucer-shaped disc with lights. Who came into his family's cabin and said, "I just saw something." They're like, "Oh, bullshit!"
It had
Billy
like
Ray.
a rainbow contrail
right?
behind
And they're
it.
like, "Bullshit, Billy Ray." Half hour later, shit starts knocking on their window.
Grab the rifle.
Yeah. But so then you have these type of creatures which come off very like elfish or fairyish in a trickster sort of world, coming from caves and sort of like I think it was
the Monogishi, the Native Americans.
And it was
talk about the little people up in Canada.
It's very true. And Jacques Vallée sort of made the assumption off of his own sort of hypothesis that, somehow these things are all sort of related and interpreted through a culture and a society of wherever you are at in a time and place. And what was always interesting about his sort of analysis or conclusion that this was some sort of spiritual or some sort of mechanical control mechanism, which leads ones down a whole other path. Like, is there some intelligence like, interfering in human society, pushing us and prodding us and moving us to this, like, almost pre-Hellenistic, like, prophecy of the Messiah coming. Like, people are like, I'm getting wind of something, something's coming down the pike. It's very strange.
It's interesting. If you open my bag right now, I've got Jacques Vallée's
goblin.
Revelations in my bag.
There you go. Yeah.
Too.
So how did you get to this point? What's your personal paranormal history? I know you've had a sighting, and we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I had a UFO sighting when I was a kid in upstate New York.
What happened?
I was fishing off a dock. It was night. I was at a motel with my parents. It's like an hour or two away from where we lived in Syracuse, New York. And I was I was listening to Green Day on my my Discman, so that puts you back in the time period. And I, I'm getting my line in, and I see 3 white lights in the water. So I start like looking down. I didn't know if something was down there underneath the water.
Wow.
The dumbass 12-year-old I was, I didn't realize it was a reflection. So I look up, and there's the 3 white lights in the air. There was a sort of red, hazy light in the middle, very prototypical of these triangular UFO sightings.
Wow.
I didn't see like a machine or any structure. Really, it was just the formation of lights.
How big? Like, if you lifted up your hand.
Yeah, I mean, my hand.
Did you cover it?
Just about.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say.
Just high up.
It was high up. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how big it truly could have been. It started going over the water, heading towards Canada, which was literally on the other side of this river I was fishing off of. And I actually yelled for my dad to come out. He saw it. So, I mean, right there, I had another witness. Wow. I wasn't alone in this. He saw it as it was going over the water. And we didn't say anything for like a solid minute or so. And then he just goes, it was a plane. Let's go inside.
Right.
But after that, I was terrified, and I became obsessed and started taking out books on everything. UFOs.
Do you think he said that because he was skeptical or because he didn't want to freak you out?
I don't know. I've asked him, and a lot of the time he either just doesn't want to talk about it, or the more I get into this, the more he's starting to realize it might not have been a plane.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
His fatherly duties had failed him.
I'm glad I got to put a button on this.
Yeah.
It's a plane. Let's go eat your dinner.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Maybe he worked for the government.
Didn't work. Yeah. You probably would have been better off saying, probably some anomalous alien craft. Let's go eat dinner.
Yeah. Little did he know I'd be
past guest and Bigfoot Collectors Club family member Grace Mitchell, who's Riley's girlfriend. Yes.
Yes.
I'm just. I don't want to talk about your personal
significant partner.
Significant
Do you
partner.
concur?
She saw a black triangle ship with her mother when
Really?
she was younger and outside up in Oregon.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
We'd have to talk to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really should talk
It's
to her.
a-
about it.
Awesome.
Pretty wild story.
An interesting
Listeners
part
can go
of
hear that story on Grace's episode.
Yeah, an interesting part of her story and so many of other stories. When we asked her, like, did you think this thing was aware of your presence? She said, oddly enough, I do. And do you feel like that this craft that you saw was aware of your presence, or do you feel that you were part of this observance field? Like, was there an interaction there?
Right. I mean, for me, in retrospect, I could say there might have been an intelligence behind what was up there, that it knew I was watching it.
Yeah.
So many people have told me that it was too obvious that they wanted to be seen. They wanted to invoke a reaction from the
was
witness.
for you.
Right. For me, I don't know. I was so alone in that moment, and I had weird physiological effects. I felt like I couldn't move. Like I had a weird vibration going through my body, whether it was to do with the thing in the air or I was just fucking terrified.
Scared to death,
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But for me, it changed my life.
Yeah,
So
obviously. Here
if
you
they
are.
meant to do it, I mean, job well done.
Wow.
But
What do you think about, I think it's Bigelow's theory that's in the 37th parallel. It's mentioned in passing, from what I recall, that the black triangles are like electromagnetic blimps. That
Which is ridiculous.
Militaries, experimental craft from the military.
And I respect whatever Bigelow's theories and ideas are on these things, because obviously he's someone who's at the cusp of his fingertips on this stuff. I mean, he's a private entrepreneur in the space industry, and most of that $22 million was allocated to his BAS, which is Bigelow Advanced Aerospace Space Studies. So he got most of that funding, and apparently it's in his hands where those anomalous metamaterials are. But at the same time, his idea on that these things are just blimps that the government
those
made.
Specifically,
Right,
I
well-
think the black triangle specifically.
It doesn't hold up to scrutiny, and I'll tell you why. The first case I would go to are the Phoenix Lights, where people would tell you that this thing was so
but different craft. Those are boomerang shaped.
triangular shaped
Right.
craft, black triangles. You know what I mean? And I guess what you're saying is that the Phoenix Lights were more boomerang.
They
in
were
origin.
boomerang shaped, almost like, and then
Like
the
a
lights
chevron
were aligned.
almost,
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the ones that are the triangles with the 3 lights and the red light in the center are supposed to be the military craft.
That's what I saw.
Interesting.
Yeah, at least formation wise.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I was going to say that doesn't hold water with the Phoenix Lights testimony. And I guess if you're right, if it is more of the boomerang that I'm looking at, because that was a multitude of crafts. Which is what's surprising.
And there was like a mile wide one on that one.
And you could see through them.
Right.
You could see through them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to play devil's advocate with the blimp thing, I've had so many reports of people seeing those, delta-shaped or chevron-shaped blimps as they were dart off at breakneck speed.
Yeah.
So
Right.
how you can explain a blimp doing that, I don't know. Maybe we
Well,
have that
and I
technology, maybe we
think
don't.
in Grace's case, they saw that thing shoot off fast.
Yeah.
Like crazy using...
Also approach fast. She said
Yeah,
saw
it went
far away and then a quick approach and it was right overhead.
Yeah.
And then it went
off again.
To me, what's the point of making it a blimp then?
right.
Their sole purpose
When
is
is
to
a blimp
fucking
not a
float.
blimp?
And
Yeah.
so many of the triangular case study too often reports that the orbs that make up the 3 lights, they can separate and reform the craft. You know what I mean? So that they're, it's not some sort. I don't know. Yeah, it's fascinating that he would say that, but yeah. Very interesting. I know in your documentary you were able to analyze some anomalous material, and we don't want to give away too much of that. But in the book 37th Parallel, Chuck Zukowski was able to get a hold of some material too.
It seemed very similar to the stuff that you guys
It
had.
seemed
strikingly
very
similar.
and he sent it off to he couldn't afford the funding to get it analyzed, so he sort of put out a call. Which Bigelow responded, his company responded, and they were the ones that actually grabbed his piece of metal material and held on to it for analysis, not to give it back. So obviously, which lets us know he was very interested in that material.
You got to get Bigelow on your podcast.
I'm trying.
That
Wouldn't that
guy,
be
I am
great?
trying.
so interesting.
He is so interesting, isn't it?
Just
But-
trying to hit him with those tweets. That's the only way you can do it nowadays.
But I would say the same thing how we talked about the government. He probably knows just as much as everybody else, which is just speculation and gut instinct and hearsay. I don't think anybody has a foothold into what this, I'm calling it the phenomena, is now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's just, I went down the rabbit hole with from Planet Weird's thing. I don't want to give too much away, but as the time this podcast airs, you'll be able to catch it for free, and I recommend that you do. But part of that email chain that was so cryptically sent to them, and they said, through that
To give it a little context,
yeah,
the guys at Planet Weird got an email from a man,
Dr. David Christie,
claiming that his house, his wife, and his kids were being harassed by a group of what looked like alien grays that he believed were coming out of an abandoned mine shaft near his property
on Kentucky, which is so interesting because the Hopkinsville Goblin case, there were so many witnesses to those said goblins. They described this guy, David Christie, and was describing the exact same type of creature. And he was able to provide photographic evidence, and also photographic evidence of one peering behind a tree, which gives off this yellow glowish haze.
Yeah.
Which, if you remember in the original Hopkinsville reports, it said they were glowing yellow entities.
Yeah. I mean, there were some differences. They also floated in
Right.
the Hopkinsville case, and we'll touch about that maybe in a minute. And they had big ears, but I like the documentary puts forth the idea that maybe what they thought were ears was actually some type of apparatus around the head.
Yeah.
I love the work Greg and Dana do.
Yeah,
if there's
they're-
anyone who should look into that case, it's them.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. They've been colleagues and friends for a long time. And when I learned that they were looking into that case, like the resurgence of Hopkinsville, I was like, I'm too scared. I don't want to go out and
It's
see these
scary.
goblins.
It's pretty scary.
And
Just the
apparently they
tapping
saw
on the
some
window.
stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm looking forward to that.
It's great.
Well, what I was going to say is, apparently they said how they got this David Christie, how they got Planet Weird's emails through a mutual friend named Terry R. Rist. Now, when you look into that name, the only place that you could find it is in a guy named Alan H. Greenfield's book, The Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts, and also in another book he did, The Secrets of the Men in Black, The Secret Rituals of the Men in Black. Now, I read as soon as I saw this, I fucking grabbed those books off the internet and I gobbled them up.
Dude, you got to read some Philip K. Dick, man.
They
Like, you
talk-
have
well, they-
not read
I
any
haven't
Philip
read-
K.
no.
You would fucking, it would blow.
they
This is
talk-
all Philip K. Dick.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. They
Yeah.
talk about Philip K. Dick in Alan Greenfield's book, and his sort of theory is that that throughout time, magicians and things like this use ciphers, and what this thing is through Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley. He was able to in his book that he got through an alien source, so he says, in the pyramid.
LAM.
Well, this would have been Iwas.
Oh, okay.
At the Pyramid of Giza, that he.
Oh, right.
That
How
his
dare
wife.
you mix those?
You're confusing your satanic aliens.
That his,
When he was
that
also like
his wife translated this book
masturbating to pictures of Toth.
to the right.
A lot of masturbation.
There's a lot
involved
here.
in this stuff.
I guess but he got this through his book of law, right? And then
Right.
through there, he said in these sort of transcribings that there was a cipher. Anyway, long story short, Alan Greenfield was said to. There was other people that deciphered this cipher, and that they used these big cases, like for instance, names like Ingrid Cold to like run against the cipher and find out more pertinent information. I don't know. I guess I'm just saying
It's real
like,
nerdy, real fast,
it's
and we don't know if any of these people are actually real people.
Well, we know Alan
So-
Greenfield is
No, but
real.
like David Christie's,
I
no one
know.
in town knows about that guy. Terry Wrist is
I'm fascinated.
clearly
it's a misnomer.
pseudonym.
Yeah, pseudonym. Yeah.
So, but we don't know who these people are. They could,
And if
just
I'm wrong,
be-
they've never heard from this individual again.
No,
right?
Yeah, no.
at least not in the first two episodes of the show.
Okay.
But anyway, I want to get to some of this other fun stuff. Before we do that, we have a game we like to play with our guests called Bullshit or Believe It.
Oh yeah.
Ooh,
Where we go down a list in rapid fire style.
Ooh.
You're gonna say bullshit if you don't buy it.
Okay.
Believe it if you do.
I might get some heat for this. All
Oh,
right.
that's fine. And we purposely give you no in between. So sometimes you kind of got to be like, you don't believe it, or
Yeah.
bullshit. All right, are you ready?
Let's do it.
On your mark, get set, ghosts.
Real.
Believe it.
Believe it.
UFOs.
Believe it.
Bigfoot.
Believe it.
Angels.
Bullshit.
Gnomes.
Bullshit.
Fairies.
Believe it.
Unicorns.
Bullshit.
Loch Ness Monster.
Believe it.
Alien Greys.
Believe it.
Parallel universes.
Believe it.
Mermaids.
Bullshit.
Why are you
Heaven.
looking at me?
I'm sorry.
Whole room.
No reason. No
Heaven.
reason. Ooh. I said no to angels, but I'm going to say believe.
Hell.
Bullshit.
Dragons.
Believe.
Yeti.
Believe.
Elves.
Bullshit.
ESP.
Believe.
Chupacabra.
Believe.
Demons.
Bullshit.
Atlantis.
According to Aquaman, believe it.
Life on other planets.
Believe it.
World peace.
Want to believe in it.
Peace in the multiverse.
Believe it.
Cool. Well
Awesome.
done. Well
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
Way to go. You
All right,
passed.
Good.
I passed.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. So no on gnomes. Yes on fairies.
Yeah. The only reason for that is folklore, in my opinion. I can see a lot of trace elements of the whole fairy
Right.
fae thing within the evolution of accounts of greys and aliens.
Yeah.
So that's what I find fascinating. you know?
Right.
Elves just scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
What's with the clown thing, right? Like 'cause sometimes have you ever like for instance the
You went from fairies to clowns?
Clowns.
yeah
Clown elves?
yeah no clown
Oh, you mean the
aliens.
people? You mean the people who were dressing up like creepy clowns like a few years
'cause
ago?
yeah,
Yeah.
like in fairy lore, and also like no, something like in the so the Ariel School phenomenon. I'm sure you're familiar with that case. It took place.
Yeah.
But some of those students described whatever those entities that were outside the craft wearing like what appeared to be clown outfits. You're not
I
familiar
don't remember
with
that.
this?
Oh, we did the episode, but I don't remember them dressed as
well,
clowns.
and then and sometimes in fairy lore too, in two, right? They seem to be wearing like the pointed hats.
Well,
with,
they
like,
dress like gnomes, yeah, with the like the tall, pointy red
Right.
caps that like garden gnomes wear. And then we did the gnome episode where that one family claimed two separate families who did not know each other claimed to be terrorized by what looked like a gnome
My
that
excitement
lived
has
in
me
a
all over
shed.
the place today.
Well, that's a good point, though. The Rua Zimbabwe case, the aerial school, I've spoken to several of the witnesses, and they all had different experiences and perceptions of what they were seeing. And I think that plays into that control mechanism of the phenomena.
Without a
that
doubt.
You see what you want, we're going to show you what we want. Owls, too, this whole idea of screen memory. Like, you can't handle what we actually are. We're going to kind of relate it to something. The clown thing, maybe they, from all their experiments and observations of us, clowns are supposed to be happy. They're supposed to, make us.
They're trying to. There's that. There's the thing. We did the story of Woodrow Derenberger and Indrid Cold. That main encounter. Over on the Patreon, so you guys can check that out if you're supporters of the show. And we'll do a bigger episode of Indrid Cold at some point down the line. But there was when I was doing my research for that, they were talking about how Indrid Cold, who got out of a craft and approached a traveling salesman one night on a rainy road, was said to be grinning. And they thought that one of the theories behind why this entity was grinning was he was sort of like, this is how people are supposed to look friendly, right? But overdid it a little bit, like smiled a little too big. And so it gave it that creepy, like, no, take it, you're at a 10, take it down to about a 6.
He's the overachiever in class,
But I love that idea of them trying to be like, what gestures do I do to kind of like not, because he kept saying, Indrid Cold's whole thing was like, don't be afraid. It's like, well, don't look so much like the fucking Joker, and maybe, it's almost like they don't have a real sense. Sometimes they seem to have a real sense of humor and a real sense of irony, whatever these higher entities are, and then sometimes they just don't at all.
Which is what the picture I have for you on whenever you call, I have that picture of what's that comic you did where it's the Joker coming out
I did.
Oh,
so I wrote when we finished doing, I was in the DC Writers Workshop, and they put out the DC New Talent Showcase. And I'd written a larger script, and then they only let you do 8 pages of it. But there was a script that I had written for the class that one of this villain that I was introducing was based on Indrid Cold, and a Superman entity, Superman villain. But
it's so good.
I'll put that up. I'll put it up on the Instagram. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna go through some of the old BCC case files, and we're gonna talk to. We're gonna get Ryan's take on them.
If I can shut up.
I know. You're the one who's got to get out of here soon. So I thought in lieu of high strangeness this week, I thought it would be fun to go over some of our old stories of high strangeness with Ryan and get his take. We've already talked a little bit about the aerial school phenomenon and Hopkinsville goblins.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories of all time is the Flatwoods Monster.
Yeah.
Story 1952. This is in the middle or on the tail end of the huge UFO flap happening around the DC area and on the East Coast. And as we talked about on the show, this is the boys are outside their school. It's the sun's going down, and they see a fireball shoot overhead and land on the hillside. Now, some stories say that this was a UFO that was shot down by the Air Force in an aerial battle that was happening over our nation's skies during this flying saucer flap. But they go up the hill with one of the boys' mothers, and they encounter a noxious gas, and this giant, almost robotic-like creature appears before them, and they freak out and run away. What do you think about the Flatwoods? What's your take on that story?
That's a really interesting case. I still struggle with it till today because the witness accounts were so vastly different in terms of like what this creature was. Some said it was robotic. Some said it had like slithery reptile-like skin. What I keep coming back to is the actual crash of the object itself. So many people in the town at the time said they could feel like their houses rumbling when this happened. So right there, I mean, you've got corroborating evidence that something crashed there for sure. That's like been definitively proven, I believe.
Yeah.
In terms of these accounts of a creature, a lot of people are skeptical because it was all children who saw this. I believe there's one adult.
There was
Yeah,
a couple. There was like two 18-year-old boys. One of
Yeah.
who was a National Guard kid.
Okay.
You know, they always like to try to be like, that's some credibility.
Make it more credible,
And then
yeah.
the boy's mother as well. One of the boy's mother.
I always love it when like somebody sees something and they run to get somebody else to bring it back, and then they see it too. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
really good
Right.
triangulated.
That's like when you wake up from a dream and you're like, that was a good dream. I got to go back and sleep and get back in that dream. And then you do, and you're like, awesome.
It's a
Right.
good point, though, because a lot of people say, if you're having a UFO sighting, why aren't you taking photos of it? That's the one question I always get. Why don't we have more photographic evidence? At least in my position as a 12-year-old, first of all, I didn't have a cell phone back
Yeah,
then. But second
sure.
of all, like the last thing on your mind is to document this for the public. It's a very personal experience.
Totally.
And oftentimes very quick.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
They're just not following the same Instagram accounts I am.
Yeah.
Because
I have a feeling some of those are doctored.
hey.
Bryce will be like, look at this. I'm like, buddy, that's a CGI.
want to believe.
Yeah, the AI is taking
I like
over.
the theory that the Flatwoods monster was sort of it was the suit for the entity and was hovering around in it. Because later, oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name, the author who wrote the book on the Flatwoods monster,
Frank Hughes?
oh boy.
I should know this.
I should know this too. I'll figure it out.
Edwards?
No. Anyway, there was supposedly a couple driving down the road later that night, who saw a reptilian alien from the waist up, and then what they call that metallic skirt that shot out the gas
Yeah,
from the waist down. So he'd kind of been like flying around hovering around the woods in this thing.
But isn't that another interesting aspect of this sort of phenomena thing too? Is like the technology is like just outside of what would be normal. Like if something can traverse light years of deep space and come here and end up in like a beep boop bop type
clunky
outfit,
trash
you're
can.
going, wait, what the fuck? That doesn't vibe. You know what I
Frank
mean?
Fascino Jr. is his name.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, no
Okay.
wonder you
Gotcha.
forgot it. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point too. I mean, a lot of people ask me because I covered Roswell. Like, if it was alien and there was some higher intelligence that was able to transverse time and space to get to our universe, they fuck up the minute they get into our atmosphere and crash.
Right.
Like, how dumb can they actually be? You know, so clearly it was something man-made that crashed or was found. Blah blah blah. But it's a very interesting question. A lot of people also ask, if they are so highly intelligent, they want to help us. They're benevolent.
Well, and that brings me to another theory is like you have guys like Tom DeLonge and his To the Stars Academy, and I read his book Gods in War, book 1, and he seems to be of the theory of the proponent that some of these crashes are intentional from the beings so that they can leave behind some sort of technology that can.
I would also propose this too. Like, just look at how tricky it was for us to get to the moon and land on the moon. And then you have things like Apollo 13 where where NASA, you have a whole team of scientists behind you and things can go wrong at any minute. It's a very delicate thing. So imagine if you're a being who is going to travel, let's say, into another dimension, right? Perhaps one that is even a lower dimension. Imagine if we could figure out a way to be like, you know what? Let's get down into a comic book, or let's get down into a painting. Let's get down into the second dimension. You know, obviously that's impossible. But let's just imagine for a moment if we were dropping down into a lower dimension, how disorienting that might be, how something that is a fifth dimensional object or fifth dimensional science suddenly being limited to physics in a third dimension, and how that might make shit go wrong. I don't know, you know what I mean? So there are all these other rules behind, whatever, astronaut or whatever being is trying, that could affect
A lot can go wrong.
A lot can
Yeah.
go wrong. I don't know. Who knows? Because we don't even know what we're really dealing with.
No. Well, they say our cell phones have more technological prowess than the Apollo lunar landing module did back then.
By a long shot.
By a long shot.
Yeah, which is insane to think about. And, a lot of people also think that iPhones came about, the technology, from the Roswell UFO crash. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
We've all got a little Roswell in our
Hey,
pocket.
how about this case? I know you have 5 on your phone, but I'm going to jump in with one. Speaking, since you spotted something fishing, a couple guys also spotted
This was my
something
next one.
fishing in Pascagoula, Mississippi.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Pascagoula Close Encounter, one of my other favorites. And I'm convinced the inspiration for the UFO and the artificial intelligence in Flight of the Navigator. Since we watched that.
Right.
Same
I
shape
can see that,
UFO and the guy
Less
Calvin.
terrifying, though.
What's the guy's name?
Parker?
Who said that this this sort of arm with an eyeball came out of the wall and did a sort of body scan. It looks a lot like that alien.
That is a disturbing case.
The
what do you think about
relationship
that?
between Hollywood and UFOs is extremely interesting. I dive into that a lot into my work as well, of the influence on which came first.
Yeah.
The UFO topic and phenomenon, or Hollywood giving us these stories.
Pascagoula definitely came first.
Yeah. So with Pascagoula, I have spoken to the witnesses, and
Wow.
one of them passed away.
Yeah.
But I firmly believe something happened. When it comes to the alien abduction phenomenon, I'm still very skeptical. I can say that flat out. I've interviewed hundreds of people who've claimed it. There's a few core cases that I firmly think something happened, whether it was physical abduction into a craft, I can't say. But with those guys, it's just, when you hear those audio tapes that were privately done.
The ones that the cops
that the
recorded.
cops did, yeah.
They...
Well, you can't really argue that. They didn't know they were being recorded.
Right.
They're in this interrogation room, and they're so petrified.
Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker.
What Ryan's talking about, I love this part of the story, is that the
Yeah.
officers who interviewed them, they had an idea. They left them alone in a room with an open microphone saying, all right, if these guys are fooling around, we're going to find out right about now. And what happened was the exact opposite of what they thought was going to happen. Calvin starts panicking again, and they're both, trying to get a grasp of reality, saying, I can't believe we saw.
He's like, did you see how that door just appeared?
Yeah.
Did you see that? And he's like, I
Right.
did. I didn't know what to think.
Well, and this is also Mississippi. These are guys, they're humble.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about this stuff. They don't want the recognition. They don't want to be
God, no.
famous,
Yeah.
which a lot of people do. I can't argue that. I come across that all the time. With these guys, they told their story because they wanted some explanation, hoping they could get one. And then they didn't talk about it for a really, really long time.
Yeah, and it really seems like, especially in Calvin Parker had a real hard time with it.
Yeah, he did.
And in later interviews, he's kind of come out and he's attributed some more religious aspects to it, because I feel like he's someone who struggled with okay, if they're aliens, what does that mean about my religious beliefs?
Yeah.
Trying to bring those.
But you bring up
could
another
see
good
him
point.
fighting those two things in his mind.
That's not the only case.
I think
where-
that really made for kind of a breakdown for him.
But you bring up another good point. That's not the only case where something came out of the sky and something came out of a craft and somebody interpreted it as religious or spiritual. You know what I mean? You look at the Ezekiel's wheel from the Bible, and you have all these other kind of elements of or even other cases. I can't think of them off the tip of my tongue, but where people interpret them spiritually.
You can certainly interpret whatever is going on or went on with Whitley Strieber. That was some apocalyptic shit. That was some Book of Revelation shit, because he kept talking about how they were the end of the world is coming kind of stuff. It was very biblical, even though the entities weren't necessarily the iconography of the entities weren't necessarily religious. The message seemed to be one, of course.
The idea of spirituality, religion, and UFOs is always been an interesting subtopic for me. religion is belief. Belief in UFOs could be considered religion. There's been many UFO cults that have popped out of that. But at the same time, you have something like the Fatima sightings of the Virgin Mary. A lot of people, including Jacques Vallée, interpret that as a UFO sighting. Cylindrical.
Mass sightings, too.
Mass. So many people saw it.
Yeah,
so
hundreds of people.
they could be connected. You know, I know a lot of people, that might be the last resort for them. It's for me, it's whatever lens you look at your experience through. If you're a religious person, it might be miraculous.
Well, and I think that so many cases we see, especially in the 60s, there's something going on there where, like, you take, is it Frank Strange who wrote about Valiant Thor?
Yeah, that's right.
That, you know, there's a lot of guys, and Woodrow Derenberger, too. There seems to be a movement happening in the mid, like, to late 60s as culture's really taking a shift, where science fiction is becoming science reality, where we're taking off and trying to get to the moon. We're going into space. You see the sort of, you can almost trace with the finger where the breakdown between the old school religious, like, iconography ends and UFOs begin. And before Kenneth Arnold's sighting in, what is it, 40? That was that 50? No, that was 47. It was around. It was right before Roswell.
Months before, yeah, even weeks maybe.
That they talked about how when people would see strange lights in the sky, they would think of it as a miracle or as a religious experience. And then in the 60s, you're starting to go flying saucers, nuts and bolts, aliens. And so you see a guy like Frank Strange, I think he was really making an attempt to go, okay, we're going to lose Jesus here. So how do I come up with something that's going to marry Jesus with the flying saucers? Let's create a space Jesus named Valiant Thor, who's comes from inside Venus and is going to try. You know, you can see their minds trying to, like, make, influenced by science fiction at the time, sort of pulpy science fiction stuff, at, you know, trying to, like, how do we save religion and put it into a new context, you know? It's a
repackaging.
It is a repackaging.
Really is. Yeah.
Whether they know it or not, whether they're conscious of this is what they're doing or not, it seems to be that that's what's behind a lot of this stuff. We talked about psychoactive or telekinetic activity and poltergeist activity in relation to UFO abductions. One of the stories that I did research on was the Deborah Jordan Cobble story, the Copley Woods incident.
Oh, yeah.
And where a lot of it seemed to be childhood stuff, abductions, but she had some strange thing happen in her backyard one night.
Yeah. And
scorched earth and entities. And then for weeks after that experience, there was orbs in the house. There was poltergeist activity. That's a really it was weird. That's a real high strangeness case.
That one's really out there. Yeah,
where you're like, okay, is she experiencing some sort of brain activity, or is there something, you know? Is there something really, really to this? Have you delved into that one much?
A little bit. The Copley Woods. I briefly interviewed Bud Hopkins, the gentleman who wrote that book, before he passed away. And it was always a fascinating case. Again, trace evidence with scorched earth. That's the stuff we live for. So that was interesting. I tied it to a case that happened when I was living in New York City at the time, many years later, to the Linda Cortile case.
Oh, my gosh. Is it the Napolitano?
Yes.
That is fucking crazy. I've tried to do that story for the podcast, and I start getting scared every time I dive into it. It creeps me out.
That,
will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll run through it briefly. It's a woman was apparently taken out of her bedroom in like a 12th floor apartment in the middle of Manhattan, middle of the night, and floated through a solid window and brought up into a craft and abducted. Now, I mean, to me, that's complete bullshit when I hear just that part of the story. But you had witnesses on the Brooklyn Bridge at the time who saw a figure going up into the
beam
sky.
Of light.
It was insane.
Not
And
just
these
witnesses,
and alien greys that were supposedly curled up in the
with
fetal
her.
position going up with her.
It's insane. Yeah, and you were going to mention the witnesses,
couple police
right?
officers in a car.
Yep. These
and
were
then
not
that one
just
who
like
became
everyday
obsessed
people.
with her.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
It was a little weird. And then supposedly a UN ambassador and his security detail.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there was another woman who was like, saw it from another angle, and she thought they were filming some sci-fi movie. She was like, they're making a movie. They're like, she was like, how do they do that?
Wow.
That is probably the first thing people think when they have a UFO sighting is, especially here in LA.
Sure.
It's like, oh, they're just filming something. But
And then the craft went down into the river.
apparently.
And then...
Yeah. So I did a special episode on
Insane.
that where Linda actually had some commentary about what had happened. And it's
my
a
God, I gotta
crazy
check that
story.
episode out.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know what to make of it. The whole abduction
Right.
phenomenon in general is something I'm still
I mean,
trying to
because
come
you
to
have
terms
Dr.
with.
Greer touting that was an ARV, which stands for an alien reproduction vehicle that kidnapped or abducted Linda and used it as a means to kind of stymie this UN conference that was supposed to be taking place.
Now we're getting into real
Sure, Greer.
tinfoil
I know
stuff.
you say
Yeah,
that.
I know. I
Tinfoil
can't.
territory.
No comment. No comment.
Now you're going down tinfoil alley.
I have to-
I know.
I have to-
UFO
look.
bashing
I have
hour.
no qualms
I
being
was
like
just saying.
I don't buy anything
No.
that Greer says. So
I have to go pick up my kids, unfortunately. Like Riley said,
you have to go abduct your own children.
They'd be a little upset if I missed them talking about UFOs. Ryan, would you like to come with me? Can
Can you just ride along in the car?
I don't know. If you told them any of the stories we talked about, they might not want me in the car.
Oh man! So I have to say goodbye. Wow, thank you so much, man. I really
absolute
respect
pleasure.
and appreciate what you do, and I'm so excited for your future in this field. I think we need guys like you. And
Well, thank you.
dude, you are a clubhouse member for eternity. Come back and visit us again soon, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
yeah.
And I'm a big fan as well. So
Dude.
we need
Well, thanks.
all these types of shows we can get to legitimize this stuff. So
I want
thank
a
Well,
you.
picture.
you're not going anywhere yet. We're going to
I'm
wrap
not
this
done.
up
I know
together.
I'm not
Finish
done.
up with. I need
Yeah.
a picture. So
Let's get a picture real quick. We'll hit
All right, we'll
pause.
take a
here.
break. We'll be right back.
Riley, I like your analogy of injured cold's smile.
Oh,
you were
yeah.
saying?
Yeah, so what you guys were talking about, I was just thinking, like, that's exactly how I feel at a party. I'm like, is this what people do with their faces? I'm having a nice time. Where should I put my hands?
What do you call this? What is this thing we are at?
Drink now.
A gathering.
I'm excited because last time I talked about this case, we know it sort of went south with our guest, who is still a good guy. But
Ooh.
I'm fascinated by the Zanfretta abductions. And I know you are not a big abduction. Well, not necessarily you're not a big one, but this is... are you familiar with this? It's a case from Italy in the 70s. The security guard who was working at like a private villa, and these giant reptilian aliens supposedly took him away, but they kept finding him like outside his car in a ditch. The car was always hot even though it was cold and raining. There was all this sort of real case of high strangeness.
Yeah.
This stuff is wild. It's all over the place, but it is one of those where you're like, something was going on here.
I mean, especially with the whole, like, I keep coming back to trace evidence. If you have, like, a car that's, like, the steel is almost... You
Yeah.
can't even touch it. Like, clearly something happened. Waking up in a ditch. I know a lot of people that do
Well,
that
sure.
for human
I know.
reasons, but
Well, a lot of these stories too, and we kind of talked about this on the Patreon. I mean, part of the Indrid Cold story with Woody Derenberger's is a lot of it feels really sad to me because there's an undertone to it that you could read it from one angle and go, okay, this guy's having an interaction with some sort of higher dimensional being. You could also look at it from the other point of like, this guy is losing his mind and he's going on drastic alcoholic benders and just disappearing for times. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it is, and I think we're remiss to, you know, it's tough because on one end, we always say on the show, like, you know, we're kind of like the Ghostbusters. We're ready to believe you. But we also have to be responsible and go, you know, a lot of this, especially the stuff from the 50s and 60s, when we look back, they read almost like, oh, this guy was having real mental health problems and just no one really knew how to put that into context. It's not saying that someone's crazy. It's just saying that someone needed a little bit of help, that their reality was getting a little bent out of shape, and there wasn't a system around them at the time to sort of go, oh, that's what this is. This is what's happening here.
Right.
You know,
Sometimes I wonder though if it can't maybe be both.
it can be both. I mean, it
Where
might be, it could be a
Slate,
little.
yeah.
Interaction actually
It
is triggering some mental health things, and they're
could-
overlapping.
It could be both. Look, nothing freaks me out more than when Adela Levine, who's one of our resident mediums who's come on the show a few times, she'll hear me talk about, she'll message me on Instagram and be like, you're not hallucinating, you're seeing real entities. And I'm like, well, there it goes.
Not the answer I wanted.
10 years of therapy.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Therapy is a good thing, though. I mean, I look at someone like John Mack, the Harvard
Yeah.
psychiatrist
Yeah, we've talked
who
about him on the
interviewed so many people who claimed alien abductions.
Yeah.
He, Pulitzer Prize nominated individual, said point blank, I don't think these people are delusional.
No.
I've seen delusional people. I work with them all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, completely sane, not alcoholics, didn't have childhood trauma that they then regressed
Right.
and then came out with some weird alien story. No, none of that. So I can't explain what is going on, but these people are perfectly sane. They live everyday lives. They are your police officers. They're your teachers. They're, you know, that person that just made your latte. It's not crazy, kooky people in the middle of the woods having abduction experiences. That cliche is long gone. So
Right.
yeah, it's interesting. I
But
don't
it
know what to
is
make of it.
looking back on some of this stuff for me, you know, some of the older cases, the stuff like the injured cold. You can see though some telltale signs of like,
Oh, yeah.
something else was going on here that wasn't being addressed. I feel like
I agree. Yeah.
Might have been a situation of a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, but
Mm-hmm.
but no, you make an excellent point, and that's what's so fascinating. I think that the conclusion that everyone seems to come to once you just start to go down the rabbit hole, as we've, you know, it's to overuse an overused term, you do. These guys all seem to come to Hynek as well. Like, okay, something's going on. We don't know what. We can't say for sure it's aliens, but something is happening, you know, and I am fascinated by whatever that is.
Mhm.
If there's some sort of, if we're living in a system where some type of subconscious or archetypal imagery is somehow being projected or manifested in that alone is fascinating. Okay, if there isn't Bigfoot and there aren't UFOs, but if the human consciousness is somehow able to project almost waking dreams, that all tend to tie into one another or reuse the same archetypes or symbols. That is fascinating.
I mean,
you know
look
what I
at how
mean? Like,
much of
that's almost more fascinating.
It is. Look at how much of our brain we don't actually use
No,
on a
it's
day-to-day
really
basis.
weird.
If we could unlock that, I'm sure the possibilities are endless. Strip it of UFOs, strip it of aliens, the human mind and the weird stuff that happens in our world every day is fascinating enough for me.
Yeah.
I could go without aliens and UFOs for the rest of my life and still be fascinated by all the beautiful things in the world, all the bad shit in the world too. It's just, it's a crazy journey, and we're all just trying to stumble along.
That's the thing, and it always kind of ties back into like, hey, by the way, we still don't know what this is. We don't know what reality really is. We don't know what the meaning is. We don't know what the purpose is. Yes, we can point to you know, biology, science, physics, math, everything that we've learned about the rules of this game, and those uphold, obviously. But we still don't know what this is.
Yeah.
You know, like, what is this?
What is this?
And that,
even? Yeah.
so it's like, that's what always gets me, you know, wired, is thinking, where are we? What is this? And how are we just limited by the tools that we have with which to observe the thing that we're in, you know, and we can't observe it without affecting it.
Yeah, it's just like, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
You know, it's like thinking about what happens after you die. That leaves me up at night,
Sure.
just like for hours, just contemplating nothingness
Right.
as opposed to everythingness. So I don't know, man. It's It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I spoke to a professor at Penn State, a history professor who's looking into UFOs and the history behind it and what meaning we give to it. And you said meaning, and I think that has a lot to do with the whole UFO topic, phenomenon, even the study of it, is we are just trying to search for meaning in life. And the whole UFO thing, you look at around the 40s, 50s, when Roswell happened, when the space race began, we're searching for hope, for like something to get us past all these horrible things that happened during World War II and whatnot. So looking at it from a historical aspect, as this professor did, I found that really interesting. We're striving for technological advances. We're striving for cures to disease, for humans to get along. So why not bring an other into that and look at what they are and what they could be? And, Philip K. Dick is another prime example of that. Science fiction eventually becoming science fact.
Right.
And what can we look towards? And a lot of people look at the advancement of alien technology as that.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting perspective, especially when you think about like atomic energy and the crisis that created. And if you can look at a civilization that has this incredible power of technology, but is using it non-destructively, responsibly, like that is like a beacon of hope for society.
It is almost like inventing and conjuring new gods to help guide the way. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we're digging into our subconscious to be like, what symbols in here can we produce or call upon to help show what the next step is along technological or human evolution. And just like there are helpful gods, there are destructive gods as well. So you kind of have to be careful with what is in the dark recesses of the collective unconsciousness. It's fascinating. I love this shit. Yeah, let's wrap this up, and then I think we're going to jump over to the Patreon, and we're going to have a special BCC bonus episode with Ryan over there. Before we go, can you tell people where to find the Roswell special again?
Yeah, absolutely. Just go to cwseed.com. It's free to stream right now. I believe it's at the top of the page whenever you're listening to this. Check that out. And other than that, I do the podcast every week, and working on more stuff and just trying to find answers.
Somewhere in the skies, you can find it on the same app that you're finding this on. And you have a book and a new book coming out, correct?
Yeah, working on it right now.
Cool.
Whole new territory for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Can you tease anything?
Yeah, absolutely. It's mixing UFOs with all the other stuff we talked about tonight.
Oh, cool.
Trying to bridge those gaps between all this weird stuff going on in our world, seeing if there are connections or if they are completely separate. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. There's a lot of convincing evidence and science behind all of it that I want to bring forward. And I'm stretching my muscles on this one. I don't know what I'm going to come up with, but it's been a fascinating journey so far. So.
What's your UFO holy grail? Like,
my easy answer would be Roswell, obviously.
Right.
But when it comes to any other like particular cases or whatnot, I would.
Just in terms of like what do you want to get your hands on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're Indiana Jones
Yep.
in this scenario, what's the artifact you want to
I
get?
want that Element 115 that Bob Lazar had, man. I'm going to break into his house just like the FBI did and try to find that
Do
shit.
you think he has it?
If, and Jeremy's a good friend of mine, if that raid
He's a
that
welcome
happened,
guest on this podcast.
always. Same. I love him to death. If that story's true and Bob Lazar is in possession of Element 115, first of all, I don't blame the government for wanting to go there and get it from him. That shit could blow up an entire town if it was unstable. I want to know what it can do. I want to see if it actually does what he says it does. And it could, like he says, even if it's true or not, change the world. So give me that element and just let me go into Area 51-1. I just want to see what's actually going on.
What would you rather have physical evidence of, an actual nuts and bolts craft or a biological entity?
I'm not ready for a biological entity.
Can't handle it. Yeah.
No, I'm going to start with a saucer or a triangle and work from there.
Great. I think that's a good place to start. Thanks again for coming on the show, man. And everyone, please hop over. Yeah, like I said, we're the primer, and then if you want to get into the real deep dive, go listen to Ryan's show. There's great stuff over there, great stories. You had, I know I'm delaying the end here, but you had a investigator on lately. I forget her name, but she was telling stories about a story about investigating something happening in a field, and she saw an entity. That shit scared me.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
What was her name?
Chase Kletsky. She worked for the DoD. She's a STAR team member of MUFON. So it's a rapid response team. You have a UFO sighting, contact MUFON, and they'll get out there.
Go listen to that
possible.
episode.
Yeah.
That had some great firsthand eyewitness accounts on it. That was a really, really cool episode. Thanks so much for coming on the show. You can listen to us every week on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Please rate and review us. It really helps us get the show to more people. Write into us at BigfootCollectorsClub@gmail.com. Until next week, we love you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much.
Bigfoot Collectors Club is produced by Riley Bray. Our theme song is Come Alone by Suneaters, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes. It really helps get the podcast to more listeners. To support the show, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Bigfoot Collectors Club and unlock multiple reward episodes every month.